Welcome back to our statistics class notes, everybody. We are now on page 94 in section 7.1, and we are still talking about biases that we could see in surveys. So example 125, actually this comes straight from your textbook. This is about sampling GPAs. Suppose you want to estimate the mean GPA of all students at your school. You set up a table in the library asking for volunteers to tell you their GPAs. Do you think you would get a representative sample, and why or why not? So my point here is that no, only students who go to the library would be students that would be volunteering to give us their GPAs, and that's sampling bias. Not all students in the school are equally likely to have been chosen for a survey because we're only getting students who go to the library. So sampling bias, bad sample. No, there could also be measurement bias here as you're asking for self-reported personal data, and students may or may not want to give you the truth on what their GPA is. Example 126, also directly from your textbook, is a questionnaire response. A teacher at a community college sent out questionnaires to evaluate how well the administrators were doing their jobs. All teachers received questionnaires, but only 10% returned them. Most of the returned questionnaires contained negative comments about the administrators. Explain how an administrator could dismiss the negative findings of the report. Again, this is sampling bias. It's only representative of the population of teachers with negative feelings toward administrators likely. Right, so sampling bias, we don't get a good representative sample. First of all, only 10% of the people return them. They got to choose who returned them and who didn't. And if they were all negative comments, likely only the people who felt negatively about administrators responded. Or at least those who felt confident and weren't going to get in trouble or something like that by responding. Example 127, also from your textbook, survey on Social Security. A phone survey asks whether Social Security should be continued or abandoned immediately. Only landlines, not cell phones, were called. Do you think this would introduce bias? Explain. Certainly sampling bias would be introduced. Sampling, bad sample, right? Sampling bias means bad sample. Why are we introducing sampling bias? Well, we're not even including people that use cell phones. And most of us realize that today landlines are pretty rare. Most people use cell phones. I don't have a landline in my house, so I always just use my cell phone. Example 128. The school district is interested in finding out what percentage of voters in the district would favor the passage of a school bond measure. The district sends out a survey to all school parents asking, quote, do you favor the passing of a school bond measure to provide additional resources to improve educational opportunities for your student? Now, you could have asked that question, do you favor the passing of a school bond measure so that your taxes go up? Again, how you ask a question can produce what's called measurement bias because it might have non-neutral language in it. This person might have asked that question with the idea that, hey, people will say yes if I tell them it's going to improve educational opportunities for their students. Somebody else could have said, hey, I'm going to tell them it's going to raise their taxes. So it all depends on how a question is asked often, and that might produce measurement bias.